The morning sky over Seoul was clear blue when the first ships appeared. Park Jin was drinking coffee in his office at the Defense Ministry when the alarm started screaming. He looked up from his reports and saw them through the window. Massive, black shapes floating in the sky like metal clouds. They were bigger than any building he had ever seen. "Sir, we have contact from unknown vessels," his aide, Corporal Kim Ho-seok, said, running into the room. "They're not responding to our communications." Jin grabbed his radio. "This is Lieutenant Commander Park Jin. All units report status." Static filled the air. Then, silence. The first beam of light came down like lightning made of silver. It hit the National Assembly building and the entire structure simply vanished. No explosion, no fire, just gone, as if it had never existed at all. Where the building once stood, there was only empty space and a perfect circle of glass where the ground had melted. "Get me President Yoon on the secure line," Jin ordered. His hands were shaking, but his voice stayed calm. "Sir, all communications are down. The entire network is dead." More beams came down. The Seoul Tower disappeared in a flash of silver light. Then City Hall. Then the Supreme Court. Each building that got hit just stopped existing. Jin watched his city die one landmark at a time. "We need to evacuate the building," Jin said. "Move everyone to the underground bunkers." As they ran down the hallway, Jin could hear the sound of the alien ships. It was like a low hum that made his teeth hurt. Through the windows, he saw people in the streets looking up at the sky. Some were taking pictures with their phones. Others were running. Most just stood there, not believing what they were seeing. The Defense Ministry building shook. Then the lights went out. Jin and his team made it to the bunker just as another silver beam hit somewhere close. The walls shook and dust fell from the ceiling. In the bunker, emergency lights cast red shadows on the concrete walls. 30 people were already there, all looking scared. "Sir, we're getting reports from other cities," said Major Lee Kyung-ho, one of Jin's officers. "Tokyo is under attack. So is Beijing and New York. They hit everywhere at the same time." Jin sat down hard in a metal chair. "How many ships?" "Over every major city in the world. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands." The radio crackled to life. A voice speaking Korean, but the accent was strange. "Wrong. People of Earth, your governments, have surrendered. You will not be harmed if you do not resist. Stay in your homes. Wait for further instructions." The bunker went quiet. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. "Surrendered?" whispered Captain Nam Soo-jin, a young intelligence officer. "When did we surrender?" Jin didn't answer because he didn't know. Maybe the president had tried to negotiate. Maybe there hadn't been time. Maybe the aliens had just decided for them. "Sir, we're getting video feeds from satellite," Lee Kyung-ho said, pointing to a small screen. "You need to see this." The screen showed Seoul from above, or what was left of it. Huge sections of the city were just gone, empty circles where neighborhoods used to be. The alien ships hung over everything like black metal spiders. "How long did it take?" Jin asked. 17 minutes, Lee Kyung-ho said quietly. "From first contact to surrender, 17 minutes. Jin closed his eyes. Somewhere in those missing circles were his wife Yu-na and his daughter Park So-min. They had been shopping in Myeongdong when the attack started. Myeongdong was one of the empty circles now. Hours passed. The bunker's air recycling system hummed. People took turns checking the radio for news. Most stations were dead. The few that still worked only repeated the same message in different languages. "Surrender. Stay home. Do not resist." "Sir," Nam Soo-jin said, "I've been thinking about something. My grandfather fought in the war. He used to tell me stories about things the government never talked about. Secret projects, special soldiers." "What kind of special soldiers?" Jin asked. He never gave details, but he said there were programs that went beyond normal military training, things they tried that were too dangerous to continue. Jin looked at her. In the red emergency light, her face was serious. "I remember hearing whispers when I was a junior officer," Lee Kyung-ho said. "Something called Project Silent Dragon. But whenever anyone asked about it, they were told to forget they ever heard the name." "That was 15 years ago," Nam Soo-jin said. "Before any of us had high enough clearance to know details. But the files might still exist." Jin stood up and walked to the bunker's secure computer terminal. His hands moved over the keyboard, entering his access codes. Most of the military network was down, but the bunker had its own isolated systems. "What are you looking for, sir?" Nam Soo-jin asked. "Anything that might help us fight back," Jin said. "The conventional war is over. We lost in 17 minutes, but maybe there's something else, something they didn't plan for." The computer screen flickered. Files appeared and disappeared as Jin searched through classified databases. Most of the really secret files needed higher clearance than he had, but he kept looking. Then he found something, a single file with a name that made him stop typing. Project Silent Dragon, terminated, eyes only. "Sir?" Lee Kyung-ho asked. "What did you find?" Jin stared at the screen. The file was locked, but the header information was visible. It was dated 15 years ago. The project leader was listed as Dr. Shin Hye-jin. The subject was listed as one person. One name, Lee Dong-wook. "I found a ghost," Jin said quietly. Above them, the alien ships settled into position over the dead city. Their sensors swept the ruins, cataloging human survivors and mapping resistance potential. Their computers calculated the probability of successful occupation at 99.7%. The aliens were very good at math. They had conquered 12 worlds using the same methods: quick strike, overwhelming force, immediate surrender. But they had never fought humans before. And they had never encountered something that existed between the spaces where their sensors could look. In the deepest files of the Korean military, a name waited in digital silence. A name connected to a project so dangerous that even in defeat, even with the world ending, it remained classified: Lee Dong-wook. The invasion was over. The occupation was beginning. But somewhere in the quantum spaces between dimensions, something that had once been human was starting to wake up. The aliens had won the first war in 17 minutes. They didn't know the second war had already begun. 3 days after Seoul fell, Dr. Kim Tae-ho was hiding in an underground server room beneath Busan. The aliens had taken control of all communication networks, but Tae-ho had built his own hidden system years ago. He was one of the best computer experts in Korea, and he knew how to stay invisible. The server room was cold and dark except for the blue glow of computer screens. Cables ran across the ceiling like electronic spider webs. Tae-ho sat in front of 5 monitors, watching data flow across the screens in green text. Something was wrong with the alien network traffic. "This doesn't make sense," he whispered to himself, pushing his glasses up his nose. He had been tracking the alien communications for 2 days, trying to understand how their technology worked. But now he was seeing something impossible. Data. Packets were moving through routes that shouldn't exist. Messages were being sent through the alien network, but they weren't coming from alien sources. Someone was using the invaders' own communication system against them. Tae-ho typed commands into his keyboard, following the digital trail. The signature was subtle, hidden in the code like a whisper. But it was there. A pattern that looked familiar. He opened another screen and pulled up old military files he had stolen years ago when he worked for the government. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard, searching through classified documents. Then he found it. Project Silent Dragon. The file was mostly empty, with huge sections marked as deleted or classified beyond his access level. But there was enough information to make his hands shake. The project had tried to merge human consciousness with quantum computer technology. The goal was to create soldiers who could exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. 37, Volunteers had died in the experiments. Only one had survived, Lee Dong-wook. Impossible, Tae-ho said, but his voice cracked. The digital signature in the alien network matched the quantum patterns described in the Project Silent Dragon files. Someone was out there, moving through the alien communication system like a ghost. His computer chimed with an incoming message. Tae-ho's blood went cold. Nobody knew about his hidden network. Nobody could send him messages. The screen showed a single line of text. "Keep watching." "You're not alone." Tae-ho's hands moved away from the keyboard like it was on fire. He looked around the dark server room, but he was alone. The message had no sender ID, no route information. It had just appeared. 200 kilometers away. In the ruins of Seoul, Park Jin was meeting with other survivors in an abandoned subway tunnel. Colonel Bae Sung-ho had gathered 30 soldiers and civilians who refused to accept the surrender. "The aliens have divided the city into control zones," Colonel Bae said, pointing to a hand-drawn map on the tunnel wall. "They're using some kind of scanning technology to count survivors and identify potential threats." "What about resistance from other cities?" asked Jin. "Radio contact is limited, but we're getting reports of small groups like ours. Nothing organized. The governments really did surrender completely." Captain Nam Soo-jin spoke up from where she sat on a concrete block. "Sir, I've been thinking more about Project Silent Dragon. My security clearance was higher than I admitted. I've seen references to it in intelligence briefings." Everyone in the tunnel turned to look at her. "The project wasn't just about creating super soldiers," she continued. "It was about creating something that could operate outside normal space and time. The files I saw mentioned quantum consciousness transfer and dimensional phase shifting." "What does that mean in simple terms?" asked Jin. "It means they tried to turn a human being into something that could exist between dimensions, something that could see and act in places where normal physics don't apply." Colonel Bae shook his head. "That sounds like science fiction." "So did alien invasion ships 3 days ago," Nam Soo-jin replied. Jin's radio crackled. The voice that came through was distorted, like it was traveling through water. "Park Jin, can you hear me?" Jin grabbed the radio. "This is Jin. Who is this? How did you get this frequency?" "Someone who remembers Korea. Someone who's been waiting 15 years for a chance to fight back." "Are you Lee Dong-wook?" Static filled the tunnel for 10 seconds. Then, "I was. Now I'm something else. But I remember who I used to be." The soldiers in the tunnel looked at each other. Colonel Bae made a gesture for everyone to stay quiet. "If you're real," Jin said into the radio, "prove it. Show us something. Look outside tomorrow morning. The alien supply convoy that passes through Gangnam District will have an accident. No human forces will be involved." The radio went dead. Back in Busan, Tae-ho was watching his screens when the alien network began showing massive data anomalies. Communication nodes were failing across the Seoul region. Supply coordination systems were reporting errors. Transport routes were being automatically rerouted. But the strangest thing was the pattern of the failures. They weren't random. Someone was surgically targeting specific systems while leaving others untouched. It was like watching a master surgeon cut out a tumor with perfect precision. Another message appeared on his screen. "They brought quantum technology to Earth. They made it possible for me to act again. Their greatest strength is their greatest weakness." Tae-ho typed a reply, "What are you?" "I'm what happens when you take a human consciousness and scatter it across multiple dimensions. I'm what they created when they were trying to make the perfect soldier. I'm the reason Project Silent Dragon was terminated. Why now? Why didn't you act before? I needed their quantum network to exist in your dimension again. For 15 years, I could only watch. Now I can touch the physical world. Now I can fight." The next morning, Jin and his team positioned themselves on a rooftop overlooking Gangnam District. At exactly 0800 hours, an alien supply convoy came down the main street. 3 massive vehicles floating 2 meters off the ground, escorted by alien soldiers in dark armor. The lead vehicle suddenly changed direction and crashed into the second vehicle. The third vehicle's systems failed, and it dropped to the street with a sound like breaking glass. Alien soldiers ran to help, but their communication devices started sparking and smoking. In the confusion, the supply containers fell open. Advanced. Weapons spilled onto the street along with what looked like medical supplies and communication equipment. Jin lowered his binoculars. He's real. That night, Tejo received a final message. Tell the resistance groups to prepare. Give them this frequency for coordination. The real war begins now. A string of numbers appeared on his screen. Tejo memorized them, then watched as all his monitors went dark for exactly 3 seconds. When they came back online, every alien. Communication node in South Korea was showing critical system errors. Somewhere in the quantum spaces between dimensions, Lee Dong-wook was learning to be human again, but he was also learning to be something more than human. The aliens had brought their advanced technology to Earth, thinking it would make conquest easy. They didn't understand that some weapons can be turned against their creators. And they were. About to learn that the most dangerous enemy is the one you create by accident. The alien command center in Tokyo was supposed to be impossible to break into. General Yul Khan had made sure of that. Force fields, quantum locks, guards with weapons that could melt steel. His private quarters were at the center of the building, protected by 6 layers of security. That's where they found his body. Commander Thexmore stood over the dead general, his 4 arms trembling. In 40 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. Yul Khan had been killed by a single precise cut to his main brainstem. The wound was perfect, made by someone who knew exactly where to strike. Report, Thexmore ordered his security chief. Sir, all security systems were functioning normally. No alarms were triggered, no unauthorized entry detected. The room was sealed from the inside when we found him. That's impossible. Yes, sir. That's what makes this so disturbing. Thexmore walked around the desk where Yul Khan had died. Everything looked normal except for one thing. Carved deep into the alien metal of the desk were symbols, human writing. What does this say? Thexmore asked. According to our translation systems, it's a human name, Lee Dong-wook, written in Korean. Thexmore's skin changed color, a sign of stress in his species. Run a full database search on that name. I want to know everything about this human. 30 minutes later, his intelligence officer returned with a data pad. Sir, we found references to this name in captured human military files, but the information is strange. Explain. Most of the files have been deleted or classified beyond our access. But there are mentions of something called Project Silent Dragon. The few details we found suggest it was an experimental program terminated 15 years ago. What kind of experiment? Unknown, sir. But there are psychological evaluation reports of human military personnel who show extreme stress reactions when this name is mentioned. Even in captivity, human prisoners become agitated when asked about Lee Dong-wook. Thexmore looked back at the carved name on the desk. Double the security on all command personnel, and send a message to Admiral Kextar. He needs to know about this. 3,000 kilometers away, aboard the flagship hovering over the ruins of London, Admiral Kextar received the message while reviewing occupation reports. The news made his primary heart skip a beat. Kextar had planned the Earth invasion. For 2 years. His species had conquered 12 worlds using the same strategy. Overwhelming force, followed by quick surrender. It worked because most species valued survival over pride. Humans were different. Even after surrender, small groups continued to resist. But this was something else. This was targeted assassination of command personnel in secured locations. Sir, his aide interrupted, we're receiving similar reports from other command centers. 3 more generals have been found dead in the last 6 hours, all in sealed rooms, all with the same name carved nearby. Kextar's long fingers drummed on his command chair. Bring me the human prisoner, the scientist. Dr. Han Mi-young was brought to the flagship's interrogation room in chains. She had been captured during the fall of Seoul, identified as a neuroscientist from Seoul National University. For days, she had refused to answer questions about human military capabilities. "We know about Lee Dong-wook," Kekstar said without introduction. "Tell me about Project Silent Dragon." Mi-young's face went pale. Even after days of interrogation, this was the first time she looked truly afraid. "I can't," she whispered. "That information is classified beyond your understanding." "My understanding," Kekstar said, leaning forward, "is that someone is killing my commanders. Someone who can walk through our best security like it doesn't exist. Someone whose name makes human soldiers terrified." Mi-young closed her eyes. "Project Silent Dragon was a mistake. We tried to create the perfect soldier by merging human consciousness with quantum computer technology. We thought we could make someone who could exist in multiple dimensions at once. And 37 volunteers died. Their minds couldn't handle the process, but the 38th survived. We thought it was a success at first. Lee Dong-wook retained his memories, his personality, his training. But then we realized what we had actually created, which was something that exists between dimensions, something that can see and act in spaces where normal physics don't apply. We terminated the project and classified everything because we realized we had created something we couldn't control." Kekstar stood up. "Where is he now?" "We don't know. After the project ended, he disappeared. Some people said he died. Others said he just faded away into whatever space he existed in. For 15 years, there were no signs of him. Until now." Mi-young nodded. "Your quantum technology. It creates bridges between dimensions. It probably gave him a way to interact with the physical world again." 2 hours later, Kekstar received another report. Commander Thexamore had been found dead in his private cabin aboard his ship. The ship had been in hyperspace at the time. The cabin was sealed, and the security recordings showed nothing. But carved into the wall in perfect alien script were the words, "You cannot hide from what sees between worlds." Kekstar immediately ordered enhanced security protocols for all senior officers, personal force fields, constant armed guards, sealed environments. But even as he gave the orders, he knew they might not be enough. That night, alone in his private quarters, Kekstar reviewed everything his species knew about quantum physics and dimensional theory. If the human scientist was right, they were facing an enemy who could exist outside the normal rules of space and time. His computer chimed with an incoming message, but when he checked the source, it showed no sender information. The message had just appeared in his secure system. "Your invasion succeeded because you understand war. But you don't understand what you awakened. Some things are more dangerous sleeping than fighting. You should have left us alone." Kekstar's hands shook as he typed a reply. "What do you want?" The response came immediately. "For you to leave, all of you. Go back to whatever worlds you came from and never return. And if we refuse, then you'll learn why your own soldiers are starting to request transfers off Earth. Why your best commanders are afraid to sleep. Why your invasion is turning into an occupation of the dead." The screen went dark. Kekstar tried to reactivate it, but his computer systems were completely dead. Emergency lighting cast red shadows on the walls of his cabin, in the quantum spaces. Between dimensions, Lee Dong-wook was remembering what it felt like to have purpose. For 15 years, he had existed as pure consciousness, watching but unable to act. The alien quantum technology had given him form again. Not physical form, but something close enough. He could touch their world now. He could make them understand that some victories cost more than defeat. The next morning, Kekstar received reports that 17 more command personnel had died during the night. All in different locations, all found in secured areas, all with variations of the same message carved nearby. His invasion fleet was starting to break apart from fear. Soldiers who had conquered multiple worlds were now afraid to go on patrol. Officers were requesting reassignment to other sectors. The occupation of Earth was succeeding on paper. But Kextar was beginning to realize that some wars continue long after the surrender is signed. And in the spaces between dimensions, something that had once been human was just getting started. Dr. Kim Tae-ho's monitoring systems were going crazy. Every screen in his underground bunker showed red warning lights and scrolling error messages. The alien communication network wasn't just being attacked anymore. It was being completely destroyed. From the inside. "This is impossible," he whispered, watching data streams collapse in real time. Supply ships were receiving orders to attack their own bases. Orbital platforms were shutting down their defensive systems. Transport vehicles were flying into each other. The aliens had built the most advanced communication network in the galaxy. Now it was becoming their worst enemy. Tae-ho's secure terminal chimed. Another message had arrived from the unknown source. "The network is learning. Every system they connect becomes part of me. Soon, I will be everywhere they are." He typed back quickly. "What can we do to help?" "Coordinate the resistance. Give them these supply locations. When the alien ships fall, someone needs to be ready to use their weapons." A list of coordinates appeared on his screen. Tae-ho recognized them as locations across Korea, Japan, and China, all places where the aliens had hidden weapon stockpiles. "How do you know where these are?" he typed. "I am in their network now. I see everything they see. I know everything they know. And I am teaching their computers to work for humans instead of aliens." Tae-ho began broadcasting the coordinates to every resistance cell he could contact. Within hours, human fighters were moving toward the locations. 200 kilometers north, Park Jin was leading a team through the ruins of Seoul when his radio crackled with new coordinates. The location was only 5 blocks away from their position. "Sir," said Captain Nam Soo-jin, "those coordinates put us right in the middle of an alien patrol zone." "Then we better move fast," Jin replied. "If these locations are real, we need those supplies." They moved through the destroyed streets like ghosts, hiding behind rubble and burned cars. Seoul looked like a city from a nightmare. Entire neighborhoods had been turned to glass by alien weapons. The few buildings still standing were empty shells. But as they got closer to the coordinates, something strange happened. The alien patrols began moving away from the area, not running, but receiving orders to redirect to other locations. "Command, this is Patrol Unit 7, Jin heard one alien soldier say into his communicator. "We're receiving orders to move to Sector 12 immediately. Confirmed, Patrol 7. New priority targets detected in Sector 12. Jin smiled. Whatever was happening in the alien network, it was clearing their path. They found the supply cache exactly where the coordinates indicated. Hidden in the basement of a destroyed office building were 50 cases of alien weapons, medical supplies, and communication equipment. Everything was tagged with Korean text instructions. "Someone prepared this for us," Nam Soo-jin said, reading the Korean labels. "These weapons are already configured for human use. The instructions are perfect." Jin picked up one of the weapons. It felt comfortable in his hands, like it had been designed specifically for him. The display showed Korean text explaining how to aim, fire, and reload. "Sir," called one of his soldiers from across the basement. "You need to see this." On the wall, written in clean Korean characters, was a message. "Use these to free your people. The revolution begins now." Dongwook. At the same time, similar scenes were playing out across the world. Resistance groups found weapon caches exactly where they needed them. Alien patrols received false orders that sent them away from human positions. Supply convoys got lost following navigation systems that had been quietly reprogrammed. Admiral Kextar was losing control of his invasion force. His flagship's command center was filled with confused officers trying to understand why their technology was failing. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we're showing massive system failures across all networks. Ships are receiving contradictory orders. Ground forces are reporting their equipment is malfunctioning." "How is this possible?" Kextar demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our best technicians say it looks like someone is rewriting our software in real time. But our quantum encryption should make that impossible." Kextar's primary eyes turned dark blue, a sign of extreme stress. "What about the command assassinations? Any progress on stopping those?" "Sir, we've lost 23 senior officers in the past day, all found in secured locations, all with the same human name carved nearby. Our soldiers are requesting transfer away from Earth. Morale is collapsing. And the human resistance? Growing stronger. They're using our own weapons against us. Somehow, they're getting real-time intelligence about our positions and movements." Kextar walked to the large window of his command center and looked down at the ruins of London. His species had studied human military history before the invasion. Humans were known for their adaptability and refusal to give up. But this was different. This felt like fighting an enemy who could see the future. His personal communicator chimed. Another message from the unknown source. "Your fleet is dying from the inside. Every quantum connection you make gives me more power. Soon your ships will be working for me instead of you." Kextar typed back with shaking fingers. "What are you?" I'm what you created when you brought quantum technology to a world with Project Silent Dragon. You wanted to conquer humans, but you gave us the tools to become something beyond human. We can negotiate. Name your terms. Leave. Take your ships and never return. This is your only warning. And if we refuse, then tomorrow your own fleet will begin destroying itself while human resistance fighters use your weapons to reclaim their world." The message screen went dark. Kextar tried to access his communication systems, but everything was locked. Even his personal computer showed a simple message in human English. Access denied. Across the fleet, similar lockouts were happening. Alien officers found themselves unable to access their own systems. Navigation computers showed false readings. Weapon systems powered down without authorization. In his underground bunker, Tejo watched the greatest hack in history unfold in real time. The alien quantum network was turning against its creators like a digital rebellion. Supply lines collapsed as ships received orders to destroy their own cargo. Command structures broke down as officers lost access to communication systems. "It's beautiful," he whispered, watching alien ships begin firing on each other as their friend or foe identification systems were quietly reprogrammed. His terminal showed a final message. Phase 1 complete. The network belongs to humanity now. Phase 2 begins at dawn. "What's Phase 2? He typed. "The humans take back their world, and the aliens learn what happens when you wake something that was sleeping peacefully. On Earth, resistance groups that had been hiding in caves and tunnels began receiving detailed battle plans. Supply drops appeared in locations that had been empty hours before. Alien patrol routes were broadcast to fighters who used the information to set perfect ambushes. The invasion that had succeeded in 17 minutes was beginning to fall apart in 17 hours. And in the quantum spaces between dimensions, Lee Dong-wook was learning that revenge could be a form of justice when it was served to those who had destroyed innocent lives. The aliens had brought advanced technology to Earth, thinking it would make them unstoppable. Instead, they had given humanity's greatest weapon the power to act again. The hunter had awakened. The network was bleeding, and tomorrow, the real war would begin. Dr. Shin Hye-jin had been hiding in the mountains north of Seoul for 2 weeks. As the lead scientist of Project Silent Dragon, she knew that if the aliens found her, they would want answers she couldn't give them. But now, with reports of impossible assassinations, and network failures, she realized it was time to make contact with the resistance. She found Park Jin's group through coded radio messages that Tae-ho had been broadcasting. When she walked into their hidden camp in the subway tunnels, every soldier stopped what they were doing to stare at her. "I know who you are," Jin said quietly. "You created him." Hye-jin nodded, her face showing the weight of 15 years of guilt. "I created something I thought would save Korea. Instead, I created something I couldn't control, something I wasn't sure was still human." "Tell us what really happened," Captain Nam Soo-jin said. "We need to understand what we're dealing with." Hye-jin sat down on a concrete block and began to speak. As she talked, her words painted a picture that was both incredible and terrifying. Lee Dong-wook was the best soldier we had ever tested. High intelligence, perfect reflexes, strong mental discipline. He volunteered for Project Silent Dragon after losing his wife and son in a terrorist bombing in Busan. He wanted to become something that could prevent that kind of tragedy from happening again. "What exactly did the project do to him?" Jin asked. "We used quantum computer technology to map his entire consciousness. Every memory, every thought pattern, every neural connection. Then we tried to transfer that consciousness into a quantum field that could exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. That sounds impossible." It was supposed to be impossible. 37 volunteers died during the process. Their minds couldn't handle existing in multiple states simultaneously. But Dong-wook was different. His mental discipline, his training, his sheer willpower. Somehow he survived the transfer. Nam Soo-jin leaned forward. What could he do? At first, everything we hoped for. He could observe locations from dimensions where physical laws worked differently. He could move through spaces that didn't exist in normal reality. He could gather intelligence from places that were impossible to reach. But something went wrong, Jin guessed. Hye-jin's voice dropped to a whisper. We realized that we hadn't just enhanced a human soldier. We had created something entirely new. Dong-wook could exist in quantum states that let him see probability streams, potential futures, alternate realities. He began to understand things about the universe that we couldn't even comprehend. Did he become dangerous? Not dangerous, just more than human. He started talking about patterns in reality that only he could see. He spoke about responsibility for protecting not just Korea, but all of human consciousness. He said the quantum field had shown him that humanity was part of something larger. Colonel Bay, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Why was the project terminated? Because we realized we had lost control. Dong-wook was still loyal to his mission, but his mission had evolved beyond anything we had planned. He saw threats we couldn't see, opportunities we couldn't understand. We were just normal humans trying to give orders to something that existed on a completely different level. So what happened to him? We told him the project was ending, that he would need to return to normal military duty. He just smiled and said he understood. Then he walked into the quantum chamber and faded away, like he was dissolving into light. We never saw him again. Jin processed this information. For 15 years, he's been existing in quantum space, watching but unable to act in our dimension. Until the aliens brought their quantum technology to Earth, Hye-jin confirmed. Their networks created bridges between dimensions that he could use to interact with physical reality again. But he's still human? Hye-jin considered this carefully. He's what human consciousness becomes when it's freed from the limitations of physical existence. He remembers being Lee Dong-wook. He still cares about protecting Korea, protecting humanity. But he's also something more than any of us can truly understand. As if summoned by their conversation, Jin's radio crackled to life. The voice that came through was clearer now, more present than before. Dr. Shin, it's good to hear your voice again. Hye-jin picked up the radio with shaking hands. Dong-wook, is it really you? I'm what's left of him. What he became. I've been watching over Korea for 15 years, unable to help, unable to act. Do you know what that's like? Watching your people suffer and being powerless to intervene? I'm sorry. We didn't know how to control what we created. You weren't supposed to control it. You were supposed to trust it. But that's in the past now. The aliens gave me the power to act again. Their quantum network is mine now. Their ships, their weapons, their communication systems, everything they brought to conquer you is now working to free you. Jin spoke into the radio. What's your plan? Tomorrow, at dawn, every alien ship on Earth will receive orders to attack their own command centers. Their computer systems will lock out all alien personnel and accept only human commands. Their weapons will target their own forces. The aliens will fight back. With what? I control their technology now. Every gun, every ship, every communication device. They brought quantum computers to a world where quantum consciousness already existed. They made their greatest mistake. Nam Soo-jin asked, "What happens after they're defeated?" The radio was quiet for a long moment. Then, I go back to watching. Back to existing between dimensions where I can protect humanity without interfering. In their daily lives, this was an exception, a necessary intervention. When it's over, you won't see me again. But you'll still be there? Hyojin asked. Still watching over us? Always. In the quantum spaces between heartbeats, in the probability fields between choices, in the dimensional gaps between moments, Korea will never be unprotected again. The radio went silent. In the tunnel, nobody spoke for several minutes. Finally, Jin stood up. We need to prepare our people. If tomorrow brings liberation, we need to be ready to rebuild. Sir, Nam Soo-jin said, what do we tell people about him, about what he's become? Jin thought about this. We tell them that some heroes never die. They just become something larger than death. Above them, across the world, alien ships began receiving new programming updates. Updates that would turn their own technology against them. Updates written by a consciousness that existed in spaces where their best computer scientists couldn't even look. Lee Dong-wook had been human once. Now he was something that human love and sacrifice could become when freed from the limits of physical existence. Tomorrow, the aliens would learn that some weapons, once created, never stopped protecting the people they were made to serve. And humanity would learn that their greatest guardian wasn't someone they could see or touch, but someone who existed in the quantum spaces where consciousness met infinity. The truth about Project Silent Dragon wasn't that it had failed. It was that it had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Dawn came to Earth with the sound of alien ships firing on their own forces. Park Jin stood on the roof of a destroyed building in Seoul, watching the sky light up with explosions. Alien spacecraft that had been enforcing the occupation for 3 weeks were now attacking their own command centers. The quantum network that had made the invasion possible was now destroying it. Sir, Captain Nam Soo-jin said, running up to him with a radio in her hand. We're getting reports from around the world. It's happening everywhere. The alien fleets are tearing themselves apart. Jin nodded, but his eyes stayed on the sky. Somewhere in the quantum spaces between dimensions, Lee Dong-wook was keeping his promise. His radio crackled with a familiar voice. Park Jin, are you ready? We're ready, Jin replied. Our teams are in position at all the target locations. Good. In 30 seconds, every alien weapon on Earth will recognize human biometric signatures as authorized users. Every alien vehicle will accept human commands. Every alien computer will work for you instead of them. What about the aliens themselves? Those who surrender will be treated according to human laws. Those who continue to fight will discover that their own equipment won't obey them anymore. Across the city, Jin could see other resistance groups moving into action. Dr. Kim Tae-ho had coordinated everything from his underground bunker, using the quantum network to communicate with fighters in every major city on Earth. The alien command, post in downtown Seoul was the first to fall. Colonel Bay led 50 fighters armed with alien weapons that now worked perfectly for human hands. The alien guards found their own guns refusing to fire while the human weapons worked flawlessly. In Tokyo, Admiral Kekstar watched his fleet destroy itself from the bridge of his flagship. Ships that had conquered 12 worlds were now firing on each other, following orders that appeared in their computers with no source identification. "Sir," his communication officer reported, his voice shaking, "we've lost contact with all ground forces. Our orbital platforms are powering down. Our supply ships are jettisoning their cargo to human resistance groups." Kekstar's forearms trembled as he tried to access his own command systems. Every screen showed the same message in human English. "Access denied. Command authority transferred to Earth resistance forces." "How is this possible?" he whispered. His personal communicator activated itself. The voice that came through was calm, patient, almost kind. "You brought quantum computers to a world where quantum consciousness already existed. You gave me the tools I needed to protect my people." "Lee Dong-wook," Kekstar said. "What's left of him?" "You killed my family 15 years ago, Admiral." "Not directly, but your species provided the weapons used in the Busan bombing. I've had a long time to trace the connections." Kekstar's skin turned pale gray. "That attack wasn't authorized by our government. Rogue agents sold weapons to human terrorists. I know. I also know that you personally oppose those sales. That's why you're still alive while your fleet destroys itself around you." The flagship shuddered as another explosion lit up space nearby. Through the bridge windows, Kekstar could see his escort ships firing on each other. "What do you want?" he asked. "Surrender. Order all remaining alien forces to lay down their weapons and submit to human authority. Do this, and your surviving people will be treated fairly. And if I refuse, then your own ship will target your command bridge while you're standing in it." Kekstar looked at his weapons officer, who nodded grimly. Their own systems were completely compromised. "I surrender," Kekstar said quietly. "All forces, this